Hey guys, what's going on? With the Salvation's Edge raid coming out literally tomorrow, I wanted to give a different type of video, going over like the different weapons and some of the loadouts that I'll be bringing in. I'll first go over some of the kinetic weapons that I'll be bringing in. First up, Supremacy. With rewind rounds and Bane Switch, Supremacy is a good option if I just want to fill in some DPS spots. If I'm using like a galley or if I'm using a bait and switch Apex Predator, I can just launch 2 Apex and then fill in the rest of the DPS with Supremacy while my Apex is reloading. Or even the GL. Midnight Coup is here because kinetic hand cannons are really good. I still need to enhance Firefly and Frenzy, but hand cannons are still really good at killing ads, even breaking down majors. And it's a primary weapon, so I don't have to really worry about double special. Let's see. I'm going to Scatter Signal. Scatter Signal is really good. Basically fills the same role as the Supremacy with your rounds being switch, but I think it has a little bit better total DPS. It's also good for majors, anything in like the medium range where I can't get a really good shot with Supremacy. Or if anything is shielded, I can just use this as well. Lumina is really good for buffing your entire team. I think Lumina gives a 35% buff, which is more than a Well and Radiant. And so having a Lumina to buff your team will just give us that much more damage. Bastion's kind of a weird pick here. I chose Bastion because if there's any like taken blights or any structures, Bastion's probably the best gun to do it. It can nearly one-shot a blight when you're under-leveled. I think it takes only one Bastion shot to take down one of the Golgoros bubbles as well. And with a recent rework, after a successful melee hit, this weapon gains increased damage, reduced charge time, and improved reload speed for a short duration. Basically trench barrel.
Where'd it go?
So this will probably be even better than it was before. Final Warning is really good for if you're pairing it with something like Cataphract, because it's both strand and you can double dip into the strand weapon surges. It also does a crazy amount of critical damage if you can manage to mark the target and hit them. And it also has a catalyst which deals increased damage and has a chance to refund ammo to the mag. This one's really good. I would recommend bringing this if you're running something like Cataphract. Mountaintop's also really good, just for the sole reason of it being Mountaintop and having a high single bullet damage. But yeah, that's... what else can I say? It's Mountaintop. Bring it. The Call is really good because it's a sidearm and it's a rocket frame, so it basically has the same archetype as Indebted Kindness, which is the arc one from Warlord's Ruin. The one special thing about the Call is that it can also progress towards your ammo finders the same way as like a primary would. So you can technically run double special with it if you really wanted to. But my role is Slice and Whirlpool. So every time I get class ability, I can sever targets for a brief duration. And then Whirlpool Weapon to get that extra 20% damage buff. Izanagi's Burden is really good if you're using Edge Transit Bane Switch, because you can just pop off one Honed Edge and then swap to your Edge Transit Mag Dump. And then you'll have another Izanagi's Burden Honed Edge probably ready. Does really good burst damage. I would use this when you're using a nade launcher. Finally, Outbreak. Outbreak's really good if you're in a team setting. If you only have 1 or 2 people using Outbreak on a boss, it's probably not worth it compared to Final Warning. But Final Warning's con is that its range is really low and it's a sidearm. So if a boss is even like remotely far away, then probably don't use this. I would probably use Outbreak. Outbreak's probably only here just to switch, just in case I have like no ammo on Final Stand. Perks on our rewind rounds, and that's pretty much it for the kinetic slot. For energy, we have No Hesitation. It's the new support auto rifle. Basically what it does is whenever you damage any enemies, it'll build up like a glaive type charge. Then when you hit fire at allies, it will heal them. And then with rapid healing, it'll give them restoration. My role on it is not the best. I have strategist, which is basically final blows with this weapon generate class ability energy. Activating class ability energy briefly improves this weapon stability. That second part's not as important. And then Circle of Life, rapidly healing allies grants this weapon a brief period of increased damage. The increased damage I think is around 20%, so roughly the same as like Frenzy, but then also it can stack along with the support frame. Support frame with rapid healing, increasing weapon damage, and bestowing restoration. So I think it's around 10% if I'm not mistaken. So 10% for the support frame, 20% for Circle of Life, that's 30% buff. And its origin trait, Dealer's Choice. Final blows with this weapon grant a small amount of super energy. Equipping multiple weapons from the Pale Heart increases this effect. I can use this with the call if I really wanted to get my super up, but it's not that much of a noticeable difference. But this weapon is extremely good if you want to tank damage or if you want to help your allies in a pinch. This is a really good weapon for that. Explosive Personality. This is only here just because it's a solar waveframe, and I can proc Ember of Empyrean off of it, where solar weapon or ability final blows extend the duration of restoration, and radiant effects apply to you. Waveframes are still really good even after the nerf. I would use this if I needed a solar weapon or ability final blows. Sally's Bane is still really good. Hand cannons are still in a good spot in terms of like damage towards adds and majors. So I'll keep this, even though I have this. I'll probably use this more than Zowli's, but if I needed a little bit more hard-hitting gun, I'll just use Zowli's. Red Death's pretty much the same thing as the auto rifle, except whenever you get a kill, it'll cure you, and then reloading after a kill cures nearby allies. I don't know if I'll use this as much, since it takes up an exotic slot, which I can use for like Izanagi's or Passion or Lumina, or even Whisper Galley. But I still have it just in case. Just in case if there's like an encounter where it's Golgroth, where you have to shoot the little spores that come out. This will be really good for encounters such as that. Ergo Sum. This is a new sword. If you haven't heard, this is a random rolled sword, and it can get different intrinsics. Mine came with Wolfpack rounds. Powered heavy attacks cause nearby sword wielders to emit tracking missiles with every attack. This one is really good if the other people are using something like Flying Guillotine or even Bequest. It can buff the damage. Same thing it does with like Galley. It'll buff their damage. So this is really good for like counters where swords are needed. I don't know if swords will be that present in this raid, but it's a good thing to have. Alright. Next is Still Hunt. Still Hunt's the new Golden Gun sniper, pretty much, where if you pick up Orbs of Power or land precision hits, you'll charge the weapons like Super Bar, and then when it's full you can like special reload it, such as like an Izzy, and it'll turn into a golden shot that'll give you like 3 really powerful bullets.
Always something new.
And then its trait is Sharpshooter. This weapon gains passive bonus to target acquisition, aim down, side speed, and flinch resistance. Flinch resistance is pretty good if you're trying to shoot a boss and it's shooting at you. And yeah. Stealth is still really good. And then I think you can stack it with Celestial. So if there's any hunters out there, you can stack it.
Swear it was right here.
True Teller is here because it's just a blinding GL. Blinding GLs are really good if there's like tormentors around. You can just blind them, and then that'll just take them out of the fight. Or if there's any like add dense encounters, you can just blind them. It's really good. Lost Argo is just a void auto rifle I have with my void build. I can just stack it. There's not much I can say about this. It's just a void auto. Divinity, even after all the nerfs to Divinity, it's still gonna be really good to use in the day 1 raid. Just because of encounters such as like Rolk or Nezarek even, for where the boss will move a ton and it's hard to get a good shot on their crit. Divinity is still really good for that. Pair that with Whisper. I think it's really good damage. Really good total damage, sorry. Really good total damage. So at least one person should at least bring Divinity. Although I think for Divinity, I think it's the artifact. Let's see. Yeah, Expanding Abyss. Void sources deal increased damage to weakened targets. If you use something like Edge Transit against a Divinity bubble, I think it won't do as much damage as if you were to not use a Divinity bubble and you opted for something else for weaken. So just be careful of that if any of your team is using Expanding Abyss. It won't work on a Divinity weaken, but it will work on anything else. For Barons, same thing as with Waveframes as what I talked about earlier. They're still really good. For Barons is probably the best one now, because it can get Ambitious Assassin Chain Reaction, along with a really high blast radius. Alright, and then that's about it for energy weapons. We can go into power weapons now. Gjallarhorn. Gjallarhorn's really good if you want to do like ad clear with it, or even if you just want to like buff your allies with rockets. Gjallarhorn is still the top pick if you're doing rocket DPS. Apex Predator is still really good to pair with Gjallarhorn, Reconstruction, Bait and Switch. Still just a really good gun. Whisper of the Worm. I basically touched upon Whisper when I was talking about Divinity, but Whisper of the Worm has really high total DPS. And it's better than something like Leviathan's Breath.
Don't think that's gonna
if
fly.
you are not using Expanding Abyss. Whisper is still really good. Other half, this is only here for something like jumping puzzles, if I need to use Eager's Edge to get out to something really quickly, or if I need to get to an objective really quickly and I don't really need my power ammo slot for that. Cataphract, this is basically the same thing as Edge Transit, but instead it has auto-loading Bait and Switch, so I can just unload Cataphract, swap to like my Supremacy or even Izanagi's, shoot off that, and then come back to a fully reload Cataphract. Request is really good because of the sword buff. I think Falling Guillotine would probably be better in terms of damage, but in terms of ammo economy, Bequest is still gonna be better than Falling Guillotine just because of the frame. Falling Guillotine has a vortex frame, so it'll consume a lot more ammo than the Bequest would. But if I can't get Bequest going with Surrounded, there's a ton of enemies around where we can do like Aeon finishers, I'll go Falling Guillotine. Unwavering Duty, it's basically a machine gun that I can use for ad clear if I'm using something like Div, or if I don't need my power ammo slot for doing DPS, I can just use this gun. Killing Tally is really good, Subsistence is really good. Basically, if you have any like machine gun that has some sort of damage perk and some sort of reload perk, you should be fine. This would be really good. This is also, oh yeah. This is also good for any tormentors too, if you want to shoot out their crits, or if there's any boss that doesn't take blast damage. That's good. Then I would use machine gun. Edge transit. Everyone knows about this gun. This is probably the best GL this season now because of the artifact perk. When I was in VS Assassin, Bait and Switch, spike grenades. This is still a really good gun. I'll probably use this over Cataphract, but if I'm pairing Cataphract with something like Final Warning, then I'll probably switch to that. If not, I'll just use Edge Transit. Hull Blue is here just because they fill the same role as when we were on duty. It's just an ad clear power weapon slot if I'm using something such as Divinity. I'd say this grenade launcher is probably better for ad clear, just because it has volt shot chain reaction, and then chain reaction got a buff to heavy GLs, where I think it does more splash damage. But yeah, that should be it for the weapons. Loadouts for Warlock, I'll be using. First one will be a Galley Rain of Fire build. Rain of Fire is basically when you Icarus dash, it'll reload all your weapons. And then Fusion Rifle or Linear Fusion Rifle Final Blows, it'll make you Radiant. I don't really care about that second part because I can get Radiant really easy. All I care about is the air dodge reloading weapons, so what I can do is Gallhorn 2 shots, Icarus dash, Gallhorn another 2 shots. And then here's my subclass build, Healing Rift, Burst Glide, Celestial Fire or Incinerator swap, it doesn't really matter which one. I use Celestial Fire just because it has a longer range. I don't have to get up close with Incinerator swap. Healing Grenade. Healing Grenade's really good for survivability since I don't really have that much survivability on this one particular build. Touch of Flame to get my Healing Grenade to be Restoration times 2, and then Icarus Dash of course to do the Rain of Fire build. Ember Singeing, class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets, and that'll work perfectly with this one, so I can get my Healing Rift faster. Ember Searing, defeating scorched targets grants melee energy and creates a fire sprite, pretty much going back into my solar melee. Ember of Empyrean, so whenever I get healing restoration times 2, I can extend that duration with something like No Hesitation or Gallhorn, or even Explosive Personality if I need to switch to kinetic, something kinetic. Ember of Mercy, when you revive an ally, you and other nearby allies gain restoration. Picking up a fire sprite also grants restoration. This is really good if one of your teammates dies and you need to res them in a kind of risky spot. When you res them, you'll get a burst of healing. This is really good. So that would be it for the Rain of Fire build. Oh yeah, I'm also running Solar Siphon, a Scout, and a Finder. I need to change this one. The Gauntlets, heavy-handed, fastball, so I can throw my grenade out to someone who needs it. And then Momentum Transfer. I need to change. Probably Focusing Strike. And then here are the armor mods. With the chest piece, I'll change it to whatever damage type the raid will have. I'm predicting mainly it'll be solar and void. Just because I think some of the dreads shoot out a lot of solar. And then I think there's like some taken hobgoblins that shoot out void missiles that hurt a lot. So if there's any types of those enemies, I'll just swap to these two. And then triple surges for the solar surge, and time dilation and powerful attraction. And that's it for the Rain of Fire build. Up next is the other build I have with the new Warlock helmet, Speaker Sight. What this one does is healing grenades spawn a restorative turret. Healing allies occasionally spawn an orb of power. The restoration turret is really nice to have because all you have to do is just throw down your healing grenade and forget about it. The turret will do everything else. It'll send out little seekers that heal allies and give them restoration ×1. But when it hits you, it'll give you restoration ×2 if you have the Touch of Flame aspect on, which is really nice for extending like Ember of Empyrean up and all that.
That'll have to do.
Weapons, Izanagi's Burden, no hesitation, and then Apex Predator. If need be, I'll switch to Edge Transit or Cataphract, but if we're using rocket DPS, then I'll just use Apex Predator. And then for the actual build itself, I'm still testing Song of Flame. Since we have 3 Warlocks, I'm sort of like a flex. I can switch to Song of Flame or Will of Radiance. The DR, or damage resistance, from Song of Flame is really high for yourself, but I think it's lower for when other allies are inside of it. I'd have to do more testing on that to actually know. But the DPS capabilities of Song of Flame is really good. Phoenix Dive. Phoenix Dive is here just because of the Helion solar aspect. So whenever I Phoenix Dive, I can activate Helion. And if you don't know what Helion does, it's basically a little solar buddy where activating your class ability summons a solar mortar that does decent amount of damage, and it scorches the targets for quite a bit as well. The reason why I run Phoenix Dive with it is because Phoenix Diving with the Helion will give it 20 seconds of uptime compared to if I were to use a Healing Rift. I think it lowers it by like 15 seconds or something like that. Also, the cooldown on Phoenix Dive is a lot lower, so we can just spam this more. Burst Glide, Incinerator Snap. I think I might use Incinerator Snap more, just because I have a lot more survivability and I can get in there. And also if I get an Ignition, it'll be even better. Healing Grenade, I already touched upon that with the Song of Flame and the helmet. Fragments, Ember of Torches, Reverse Changing, Benevolence. This also stacks with the Healing Auto Rifle, and it gives you like a 300% ability regen. This is really good if I just want to spam healing turrets or my Phoenix Dive.
Good and bad.
And then finally Empyrean to extend the duration of restoration ×2. And then I'll do triple or whatever surge I'm doing DPS on. And then double impact induction with a heavy-handed one, since my healing grenade will do no damage. Next one is an Aeon build. If there's any encounter where we're strapped for heavy ammo, Aeon builds is probably going to be the way to go, just because of the nerf to Cenotaph. Aeon finishers will generate a finder brick that'll give you more ammo than something like a Cenotaph brick. So Aeons is probably the way to go for that. If someone's using Cenotaph already, they can just Cenotaph the boss, and then someone can go in an Aeon finisher and you'll still double stack, which is really nice. And then for the boots, instead of having surges, I'll just go into building my charge, getting more ammo, proximity ward is here just so I can be a lot safer when doing a finisher, because this will give me an overshield, and then whenever I do finish someone, if I don't have any armor charge, I'll get one temporary one. This is basically a swap 2 build, if need be, and then the actual DPS build, it'll just change Aeons out for the warlock helmet, and then the boots will change to a weapon surge, with the class item being a time dilation one. Everything else should be the same though in the subclass tree. Hellion, Phoenix Dive, Healing Grenade, and then same aspects as before, and fragments. I guess we can go into Prismatic. Prismatic Warlock. There's quite a few options to choose from. You can do double Cold Snap Grenades, but for this build in particular, I'll use Nova Bomb. Nova Bomb got a buff to its actual damage, so I think Nova Bomb does more than a Needle Storm. Needle Storm? Well, Nova Bomb got a buff to its damage, so I'll be using Nova Bomb over Needle Storm. Needle Storm is just really hard to use when there's different enemies around the boss. Some of the threadlings might track towards the enemies instead of the boss, resulting in a damage loss. Nova Bomb Cataclysm is just really good. Ease of use. Abilities: Phoenix Dive to pair with the Hellion aspect. Pocket Singularity, just so I can make targets volatile from far away. I can also use Arcane Needle too, but Pocket Singularity has a lower cooldown than Arcane Needle. Threadling Grenade can pair with the Verity's Brow, and Weaver's Call also pairs with the Hellion and Phoenix Dive. Fragments used is Facet of Hope. While you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly, which ties into Facet of Dawn. Powered melee hits against targets makes you radiant. Final blows make you and nearby allies radiant. Courage. Arc Solar and Void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted with darkness debuffs. This also includes your super. So if I have something like Unraveling from like strand damage or one of my weapons that can unravel something, I can just pop Nova on it and it'll do increased damage. Facet Protection is here just because of the extra damage resist that you get. Prismatic Warlock has a few ways of getting Restoration, even Woven Mail, if you were to use Needle Storm. But since I'm on Nova Bomb Cataclysm, it's a little bit harder to stay alive, so Facet Protection is just here. Facet of Purpose, this is what I was talking about, where depending on your super, whenever you pick up an orb power, it gives you like the damage resistance of whatever element that is. So if I were to use like Song of Flame, whenever I picked up an orb power, I would get Restoration, or if I were to use Needle Storm, it would give me Woven Mail instead. But since I'm using Nova Bomb, it'll be a Void Overshield. Facet of Balance. This is just here so whenever I get kills with darkness damage, so Threadling Grenades, Threadlings, pretty much anything darkness related, it'll give me extra grenade energy, which I can feed into more Threadling Grenades. I don't really care about the light damage increasing the melee energy. I only care about the darkness damage, because the loadout I'll be using for that will be Final Warning. When I talked about this before, Final Warning was really good in terms of like extra crit damage. I tested it on the Ogre boss and I was doing around 16k per crit if I was in range, which is really good. Against majors, this thing absolutely shreds. And also exotic trait. Where is it?
Affirmative.
Oh yeah, right here. And this exotic trait, hitting a marked target with a fully charged burst will unravel them. This also ties into the one aspect where Arc Solar and Void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted with Darkness debuffs. That includes Unraveling. So that'll just double dip there. Forbearance is here just because of ad clear. Forbearance is really good at ad clearing. I already stated this before. Cataphract, just so I can double dip in Final Warning. Verity's Brow. Verity's Brow is here just because whenever I get kills with like Final Warning or Cataphract, it'll increase the damage of my Thirdling Grenades. And then whenever I throw out my Thirdling Grenades, my allies will get really good increased grenade regen. It's like stupidly crazy fast. So that's also a nice plus. But this is mainly here to just boost the damage of a Thirdling Grenade, since we don't have the Strand aspect, or not aspect of Fragment, that gives bonus damage to Thirdling damage. I think it's... yeah, Thread of Evolution. Thirdlings travel farther and deal additional damage. Since we don't have that on Prismatic, I can just sub it out with Verity's Brow. In terms of mods, bolstering detonation, firepower on the gloves, flex damage resistance, chest, double dipping into Strand with Final Warning and Cataphract, so I'll just use Strand Weapon Surge. And then the same thing as before, Power Protraction and Time Dilation. That should be about it. Oh yeah. I have a Phoenix Protocol build, just in case if I need to have access to like a mini pocket nuke. I can just use that. I was using this in the Pantheon Nezarec for the ad clears, and this was doing a lot better than something such as like Sunbracers. I don't like using Sunbracers simply just because of the inconsistency with the melee kills. Sometimes if you would get a melee kill, it would not proc Sunbracers. So Starfire is just here just to have a extra fusion grenade, and fusion grenades still do a ton of damage with the solar aspect. So that's why I use that. I also use Heat Rises simply because I don't have a healing grenade. So in terms of survivability, I have to proc Heat Rises with Phoenix Dive to get restoration ×2, and then I can extend that with Ember of Empyrean, which would be easy because I'll use Zali's Bane or whatever solar primary I have, so like no hesitation. And then triple Void Surge. Yeah, that's about it for this one. For the Void build, I'm still debating on whether to use this build. I probably won't use it, just in favor because Prismatic already has the Nova Bomb, and I can use Thirdling Grenades too, which will deal even more damage. I don't know if I'll use this Void build. I probably won't. And then the final build will be using a Still Hunt. Still Hunt's basically just a free golden gun, as stated before. And then rocket DPS if we need to, or GL DPS. But if I'm using Still Hunt, it's probably better to use rocket DPS because I can just double dip into surges. Minaku's here just because I can have a primary kinetic and then charge that. Still use the helmet. I'll still use the helmet just because of the healing turret. It'll help people survive a lot more, it'll help me survive a lot more. And then Ember of Empyrean, I can just get a kill with Still Hunt, which will proc its super bar. And then Kinetic Cycling, because I'll probably be mainly using the Midnight Coup a lot more than Still Hunt just because of ammo economy. Yeah, that should be about it. Oh yeah, and Next up is my div build. I probably won't be using this as often as some of the other builds, but it's just nice to have. I have div combined with Pseudotap Mask. And then Unwavering Duty, just a sub in for ad clear. I'm using double special here just because of the call and its frame type, which will proc ammo finders and ammo scouts. The call has slice and purple weapon on it. Subclass, this one's a little bit different. I'm still going to use well, healing rift instead of phoenix dive, and then the healing grenade for restoration ×2, Icarus dash so I can move around faster, Ember of Mercy, Empyrean, Searing, and then messaging. If I wasn't using Unwavering Duty, if I was using something such as Hell Blue, I'd probably swap out Empyrean for something else. Maybe something like Benevolence. And then for surges, 1 arc surge, 2 solar. Just so I can do a little bit more with my heavy weapon, since div really doesn't have much of a presence in terms of damage. If you weren't playing warlock, if you're playing something like a titan, I would probably use Pyrogale. Pyrogale is still really good, or the rocket chest piece. I forget which one that one was called, but the rocket chest piece is really good because it can buff your own rocket. So if you're using galley, it would buff your galley damage too. It'll make you have like damage on par with the galley boosted legendary rockets like Apex Predator. And then hunters have a really good synergy with Still Hunt. I'd probably use Still Hunt and then Celestial Nighthawk just to get 2 Celestial shots in, which is a ton of damage. But this is mainly a warlock video loadout, and I'll be bringing into the day 1 raid. And I'll catch you guys later. See ya.